The Tiger Rising by Kate DiCamillo. Chapter 20. The last thing Beauchamp said to him was, "Don't forget now, this is our business deal. It don't concern nobody else. You take that bag of meat and hide it somewhere, and I'll bring you more meat tomorrow. In the meantime, you keep your mouth shut." At 3 o'clock, the school bus pulled up, belching and gasping and sighing. Norton and Billy Threemonger started pelting Rob with date palms before the bus even came to a complete stop. The bus door opened and Sistine came running toward him, dodging the dates, looking as serious as a soldier on a battlefield. "Let's go see the tiger," she shouted to him. Rob was dismayed to see that she was still wearing his shirt and jeans. "In here," she said. She held up the same grocery bag he had given her the night before. "I changed as soon as I got out of the house. My mother doesn't know. I found a book in the library today and read about big cats. Do you know that panthers live in the woods here? We could set the tiger free and he could live with them. Come on," she said. She started to run. Rob ran too, but the keys to the cage felt heavy in his pocket and they bumped up against his leg and slowed him down so that Sistine beat him there. When he arrived, she was standing, pressed up against the fence, her fingers wrapped in the chain link. "Tigers are an endangered species, you know," she said. "It's up to us to save him." "Watch out he don't attack you," Rob said. "He won't. Tigers only attack people if they're desperately hungry." "Well, this one ain't hungry." "How do you know?" Sistine asked, turning around and looking at him. "Well," said Rob, "he ain't skinny, is he? He don't look starved." Sistine stared at him hard. And Rob opened his mouth and let the word fall out. "Keys," he said. Every secret magic word he had ever known. Tiger and cancer and Caroline. Every word in his suitcase seemed to fall right out of him when he stood before Sistine. "What?" she said. "Keys," he said again. He cleared his throat. "I got the keys to the cage." "How?" "Beauchamp," he told her. "He hired me to feed his tiger, and he gave me the keys." "All right," said Sistine. "Now all we have to do is open the locks and let him go." "No," said Rob. "Are you crazy?" she asked him. "It ain't safe. It ain't safe for him. My friend Willie Mae, she had a bird and let it go, and it just got ate up." "You're not making sense," she told him. "This is a tiger, not a bird. And I don't know who Willie Mae is, and I don't care. You can't stop me from letting this tiger go. I'll do it without the keys. I'll saw the locks off myself." "Don't," said Rob. "Don't," she mocked back. And then she spun around and grabbed hold of the cage and shook it the same way Beauchamp had earlier that day. "I hate this place," she said. "I can't wait for my dad to come and get me. When he gets here, I'm going to make him come out here and set this tiger free. That's the first thing we'll do." She shook the cage harder. "I'll get you out of there," she said to the pacing tiger. "I promise." She rattled the cage as if she were the one who was locked up. The tiger paced back and forth without stopping. "Don't," said Rob. But she didn't stop. She shook the cage and beat her head against the chain link, and then he heard her gasp. He was afraid that maybe she was choking. He went and stood next to her, and he saw that she was crying. Crying. Sistine. He stood beside her, terrified and amazed. When his mother was alive, when he still cried about things, she had been the one who comforted him. She would cup her hand around the back of his neck and say to him, "You go on and cry. I got you. I got good hold of you." Before Rob could think whether it was right or whether it was wrong, he reached out and put his palm on Sistine's neck. He could feel her pulse, beating in time with the tiger's pacing. He whispered to hear the same words his mother had whispered to him. "I got you," he told her. I got good hold of you." Sistine cried and cried. She cried as if she would never stop. and she did not tell him to take his hand away. Time out. What is going on with Sistine? Why is she crying so much? Let's look back. When did she start? She starts here. In fact, actually, even though I want to say that she starts here, she actually starts way back here. Once he says no, that they're not going to let her go, she gets really, really stubborn about it. And then she even, I don't know, she does something kind of mean. He says, "Don't," she said Rob. "Don't," she mocked back. So her own friend, she's making fun of the way that he says don't. And then she starts shaking the cage and she talks about how much she hates this place. Over here, too. She rattled the cage as if she were the one who was locked up. The tiger paced back and forth without stopping. And so she's shaking the cage and so angry that she can't let the tiger go because Rob won't let her. And she starts crying. Why? Why does Sistine want so badly to let this tiger go? Think about everything that she has said and what we know about Sistine. I think you can figure this one out. Good thing to write about in your reading response journal. Let's keep on moving. Chapter 21. By the time they started walking back to the Kentucky Star, it was dusk. Sistine was not crying, but she wasn't talking either, not even about letting the tiger go. "I have to call my mother," she said to him in a tired voice when they got to the motel. "I'll go with you," said Rob. She didn't tell him not to, so he walked with her across the parking lot. They were almost to the laundry room when Willie Mae materialized out of the purple darkness. She was leaning up against her car, smoking a cigarette. "Boo," she said to Rob. "Hey," he told her back. "Somebody following you," she said, jerking her head at Sistine. "This is Sistine," Rob told her. And then he turned to Sistine and said, "This is Willie Mae, the one I was telling you about, the one who had the bird and let it go." "So what?" said Sistine. "So nothing," said Willie Mae. Her glasses winked in the light from the falling Kentucky Star. "So I had me a bird." "Why are you hanging around in the parking lot trying to scare people?" Sistine asked, her voice hard and mean. "I'm trying to scare people," said Willie Mae. "Willie Mae works here," said Rob. "That's right," said Willie Mae. She reached into the front pocket of her dress and pulled out a package of 8-ball gum. "You know what?" she said to Sistine. "I know you. You ain't got to introduce yourself to me. You angry. You got all the anger in the world inside you. I know angry when I meet it. Been angry most of my life." "I'm not angry," Sistine snapped. "All right," said Willie Mae. She opened the package of 8-ball. "You an angry liar, then. Here you go." She held out a stick of gum to Sistine. Sistine stared for a long minute at Willie Mae, and Willie Mae stared back. The last light of dusk disappeared, and the darkness moved in. Rob held his breath. He wanted desperately for the two of them to like each other. When Sistine finally reached out and took the gum from Willie Mae, he let his breath go in a quiet whoosh. Willie Mae nodded at Sistine, and then she extended the pack to Rob. He took a piece and put it in his pocket for later. Willie Mae lit another cigarette and laughed. "Ain't that just like God?" she said, "throwing the two of you together?" She shook her head. "This boy, full of sorrow, keeping it down low in his legs. And you," she pointed her cigarette at Sistine, "you all full of anger, got it snapping out of you like lightning. You some pair, that's the truth." She put her arms over her head and stretched, and then straightened up and stepped away from the car. Sistine stared at Willie Mae with her mouth open. "How tall are you?" she asked. 6'2", said Willie Mae. "And I got to get on home. But first, I got some advice for you." "I already gave this boy some advice. You ready for yours?" Sistine nodded, her mouth still open. This is it. Ain't nobody going to come and rescue you, said Willie Mae. She opened the car door and sat down behind the wheel. You got to rescue yourself. You understand what I mean? Sistine stared at Willie Mae. She said nothing. Willie Mae cranked the engine. Rob and Sistine watched her drive away. I think she's a prophetess, said Sistine. A what? Rob said. A prophetess, said Sistine. They're painted all over the Sistine ceiling. They're women who God speaks through. Oh, said Rob. A prophetess. He turned the word over in his mouth. Prophetess, he said again. He nodded. That sounded right. If God was going to talk through somebody, it made sense that it made sense to Rob that he would pick Willie Mae. Time out before we start again. It's amazing how Willie Mae can sort of see people, have a really big text-to-text connection between some of the people in the miraculous journey of Edward Tulane, can sometimes see inside Edward Tulane, even though he can't speak. They somehow know. Willie Mae is one of those people, it kind of just seems like she knows things. And you can tell that there's a point in which Sistine completely buys in. She doesn't know what to think about Willie Mae. She's a little cranky. And then she does this right here, where Sistine looks at her like this, just with her mouth open. So imagine, make that face. Why is she making that face? This one. Think about that. You can tell the screen right now. What kind of emotion is she feeling? Right? So at that moment, something happened before that made her make that face. So think about all the stuff that she had said from here to here to here. And then, of course, here. Great things to write about.